On the other side of the tournament semifinals, we have Whiteheart and Ajax. Both of them are going Cybern, and we're playing on Farce in the Forest, which is a little bit of an odd land map, one that I am not very good at playing, but we have seen some interesting things happen on in the past. There are only 3 mass extractors in your core base, and you are going to be forced to expand as quickly as possible out into the land mass. There are some small clumpings of mass extractors, 3s and 4s, but they're very difficult to maintain control of in the earliest portions of the game. There's quite a bit of reclaim, large rocks, plenty of tree clumps, so I'm sure we'll see some manual reclaim and attack move orders from these guys as the game goes on. And you want to have as much land as early as possible so that you can prevent run-bys, because with the looping plateau structure of this map, if you have any unit get into the rear, it's kind of like Badlands, where it's going to be a pain in the buttocks to get rid of that unit later. Taking a look at Whiteheart's build, it looks like we've got first land, second, third land, and then an air factory after a fair bit of power. And you'll say, but Brink, why is the power build so conservative? It is because tree clumps, my friends. Tree clumps. 100 power, 10 mass per tick, and you will notice that he is moving along quite happily with his overall positive power income thanks to 2 engineers that are reclaiming, and it looks like another 2 are going to go to the south side and get all of this in hand. So that's going to give him a massive leg up in his early game, spewing units forth onto the map to gain early control of land. On the north side, we've got Ajax going for first and second land, third air, and the mole from Whiteheart, oh, that is dirty. He's moving in to break up all of the tree clumps. So let's click into Ajax. You'll notice the long reclaim cycles as entire clumps of trees are sucked up, and then we'll see what happens when that mole passes through. A couple of units out to respond early, going to pick up the 4 mass extractors with that. And now look at our poor little engineer. Zip, 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 1 tree at a time. It makes your reclaim much less efficient when you do that, and I think Whiteheart is probably... it's fair to consider him a dirty bastard for doing so, but again, it's all fair when you're trying to win the game. It is definitely not cheating, as some cough maverick might say. Alright, Ajax has shifted to a 3rd land factory instead of the 4th air. I think that's probably due to the fact that his tree clumps have been broken and he knows that he cannot get good reclaim from them anymore, at least not enough to support his 3rd air factory. So 4th it is after a few more power generators have been scheduled. So 4th air factory for Treesome, which is Whiteheart with his ACU renamed, I guess, probably to poke fun at his opponent. And then we've got 2 more land factories for a total of 5. And we've already got units moving out to every corner of the map. Got a Mantis Scout pair over to the right side edge, Scout ahead of the Mantis for Ajax moving towards the south. And then we've got a hapless engineer that has gotten ahead of his escort that might just run into this Mantis. And yes, I do think that is going to be the case. Mountain climbing engineer right there, cutting the corner on that move. I wonder if that was something intentional or if that's just how the pathfinding goes. Mantis able to get away scot-free, I think. Nope, we've now got 2 versus 1. It is just barely inside the firing range, and that Mantis is going to die. Terrain collision on the Mantis lasers there was a little bit frustrating to watch. Whiteheart moving into the back of this base with his AC, not with his ACU, with a Mantis. It might be able to pick up this engineer. Yes, gonna take a corner there as his mole brings it into focus. Engineer trying to dodge just a little. It might be able to evade, and nope. It was even trying to body block with the other Mantis. That is not going to be successful. This is one of the most interesting things to me about watching the 2100 and 2300 ranked games, as we see these players are. They have so many APM to maneuver all of these different units on the map that you get to see these cool things happening, interactions all over the place where you would typically only have one thing going on at a time in a lower ranked game. We do have a bomber out for Whiteheart. Petrick is trying to get a little bit of aggressive with his air, and that is probably going to move in and try to kill off some expansioneers and delay the move into the map from Ajax. Something as simple as a single engineer being lost can sometimes decide games, and single engineers being lost are happening all over the map. Whiteheart's about to lose his own engineers to a couple of intruding Mantis moving in from the rear. It would appear that he knows that those are there. I'm not sure how he knows, or maybe he just guesstimates, but he is moving his units to respond to a threat that has not arrived yet. Now they're going to come into focus. A Hunter and a Mantis going to shred that engineer, no problemo, and they're not going to be successful in killing off the mass extractors, unfortunately. Looks like the ACUs are going to converge onto the same area. Ajax has no idea that this commander has moved up this far. Whiteheart probably knows, because he did have a scout over Ajax's head, and the point defense has begun. So the question here is Whiteheart mass stalling? He is not. He does have the mass to build this point defense without stalling a single bit, but unfortunately the ACU is going to be able to damage the point defense slightly faster than the T1, and the T1 ACU can build it. Treesum is going to fall back. Petrick does not want to be caught out with this group of Mantis and the ACU that's moving forward, but Ajax must not know that there's a whole nother group of Mantis moving from the rear that could perform a pincer. Petrick falling back, still both ACUs being careful to target units, not the enemy commanders, because you don't want to be devoting damage to a sponge that you're not ever going to be able to kill with that many tanks. Engineer going down in Whiteheart's base. That's going to stop his bid for a T1 point defense and the relatively permanent defense of that area. Then we've got more Mantis out from Ajax moving to the edges to deal with some of these extra units. This leaves his ACU in a very precarious position. He's going to take a retreat. I'm not sure that he knows. No, he doesn't. He is retreating somewhat because of his mass extractor build order, but that is not indicative of his awareness of the situation. More Mantis pouring out of his base towards his commander. We've got a total of 8 land factories now. Looks like expansion's getting hit by Petrick, who has a total of 9 land factories, a 10th going down, 11, 12 on the south side. So Whiteheart is going for the scale, not eco approach, and getting many, many more Mantis. Sometimes you just gotta take the spam option, yo. That is the only thing that works. Treesum falling back. I think he has enough units to challenge this, but their ACUs are about the same amount of health, so if you meet with even health and even unit count, there's a possibility that your opponent could mutual KO you, and you do not want to have that happening in a tournament atmosphere. More Mantis moving in from Petrick. Ajax being a little wary of the situation. He does have a land scout with him, so he can see how many blips are within his immediate vicinity. Looks like roughly the same amount of units coming from these factories right now. But Ajax is having to devote quite a bit of his forces to reacting to these raiding parties that are reducing his eco to 27 mass per tick, as opposed to 35 for Petrick, at least until he lost a mass extractor somewhere on the map. That was a nice shoot down. Whiteheart was able to kill that transport before it got to the top edge. While it may not seem like one mass extractor is a big deal, that's one mass extractor that's exceptionally well defended against raiding parties, and he gets all of the reclaim from the tree clumps on top of the hill. All 4 mass extractors going down there for some weird reason. Apparently Petrick was not paying attention. Now he's going to be able to move out. He's got more engineers on the way. I can see the queue. There it is right there. And he'll be able to take care of business with extreme prejudice. Looks like one single Mantis has managed to evade the moves of all of this group, although there are 2 now tagged on it, so that will probably get chased down and executed post-haste. 1 land factory in the outside edge for Ajax. So back to our totals, 9 versus 12. I was correct in my initial count. 3 more land factories for Whiteheart. So what could happen here is we could see the ever increasing scale of T1 spam versus a T2 factory move, because looking at how concentrated Ajax's base is and how this is going with his build power and whatnot, I would not be surprised at all if he tries to make a T2 shift. Got a little raiding party over here. I love this point defense, which is able to guard that mass extractor, but we did lose one on the other edge and a radar, which is slightly more unfortunate. ACU's still just kind of standing off over this single expansion of 3 mexes. Let's take a look at the ecos. 35 to 43 advantage Petric. Ajax is on 5,700 reclaim. Whiteheart on 9,000. Nearly double his opponent's mass. And he's now going to get a T1 point defense online, which will drive Ajax to the rear. You know, I can't help but think that the way this is going stems entirely from the mole that hit the back end of Ajax's base. If this turns out to be a win for Whiteheart, I think that's what I'm going to chalk it up to, just for giggles. Ajax down to about half HP as he retreats, no, more like 65%. It's easy when the ACU has 10,000 health. You just got to do a little quick maths. Then we've got Mantis killing the mass extractor belonging to Ajax on the right. So the eco disparity is ever increasing. 35 to 57 at the current game tick, 740 power to 700. So not really behind on that. Is that a drop I see? Are these shenanigans being planned? We shall know in just a moment. That transport is looping all the way around to the back end. And we've got 4 Mantis in again to kill all of those mass extractors in the rear. That is hilarious. Whiteheart losing his entire advanced force on the left without killing a single mass extractor. If Ajax is able to push forward and gain that reclaim, it'll put him in an exceptionally good spot. But on the south, we do see a T2 mass extractor that has already been built, probably going to go for another at some point, and extra power being laid in. So I think we're about to see a tech shift from Whiteheart. T2 mass extractor on the north as well, along with a second underway. T1 bombers coming out trying to kill off those Mantis that are killing the Hydro. You don't want to lose that 100 power income, because that could be the difference between life and death when you're alternately stalling and going positive depending on your reclaim situation. Ajax being forced to fall back yet more, and every time he falls back, you'll see these engineers out reclaiming those wrecks. Every time he falls back, it leaves a little bit more mass for Whiteheart to reclaim and turn into new and shiny Mantis. 13,000, 14,000 reclaim for Whiteheart versus 96 for Ajax. Not a good situation to be in reclaim-wise. We had the drop that succeeded in killing off the Hydro, but I don't know that that's going to make enough of a difference to actually impact the game. We are at a power stall, though, so it might. Mantis moving up on the top left. I don't know that there is one Medusa. One sad Medusa. Thankfully, the Mantis are targeting over the tops of the walls thanks to the terrain shape. So that point defense is going to go down without any help from the Medusa, and that'll leave these free to kill off the mass extractors and the units in the area. But since those have moved out of the way, Ajax is now going to be in trouble with units on the top left. 3 mass extractors going to go down. No point defense in the base to defend himself with. And then there is the issue of the unit count. I don't think that Ajax has anywhere near the total units that his opponent does. Let's just go take a look-see. We got 33 interceptors, 53 tanks, 18 arty. So 53, 18, 33. And then we've got, barely any air. Holy cow, how do you not have that much air? 105 Mantis, 23 arty. So he has no air, but he has double the number of tanks and slightly more artillery than his opponent does. Throw into that nearly 3 T2 mass extractors versus 2 T2 mass extractors plus superior map control, and Ajax is looking more and more beleaguered as he falls back yet again. Well, no, never mind. He is in the middle of an upgrade, so he cannot be falling back. He's having to push his units out to the front, though, to defend his ACU. Thankfully, the Cybran artillery is not that high a damage, so you aren't going to immediately die like you would to Lobos if your ACU is stuck in an upgrade and a bunch of artillery comes up. Lobos with just a couple of firing cycles can threaten your ACU with death, along with Fervors, actually. Cybran's kind of got the shaft on that one. Gun upgrade going down for Treesome. Petrick already has the stealth upgrade. Then we've got gun complete for Ajax, which is going to give him a little bit of an advantage moving into these units and getting some kills before his opponent can come up and contest. But again, we're seeing the huge disparity in unit counts hurting Ajax tremendously. We've got a T2 land shift, I think more out of necessity than anything, but that is going to cause some severe issues with his map control because he doesn't have all of the Mantis that went into the mass for this HQ. He's going to have to play catch up for a minute. Rhino moving up to the north side. It's going to be able to knock out a couple of Mantis, but not very many before it meets its maker, because once you get that many T1 units in range of a T2, the damage scaling is out of this world. Ajax gonna take this forward expansion that has been plaguing him for this entire game. Does he have overcharge? Yes, he does, and he is free to kill off that T1 PD. More T1 PD going down in the rear. A lot of times, those T1 point defenses are more to buy time than anything else. Oh, AA Mantis reducing the air numbers for Ajax as Petrick is now building Corsairs and has started building a few more Interceptors for himself. So we're now seeing 25 Interceptors, 1 Corsair. That is more than enough to contest air control and possibly enough to kill this ACU. 5,000 health, tangled up in too many units, with Petrick bearing down the gun comm, solely firing on that enemy ACU. Corsairs moving in for the kill, 3,000 HP. I think at this point Ajax knows that there is no way he's getting out of this alive. The air engagement is going to favor Petrick on the first turn, but I think a little bit of a recovery from Ajax is going to make it tight, but he doesn't have the APM to spend on it, while also microing his ACU. Once these are placed on an attack move order or stopped, Petrick's going to have the numbers to come out with the air win, if even barely. 2 Corsairs screwing up their firing pattern, not dropping bombs. 2,500 HP on that ACU with some strategic dodging and a fair bit of micro and a little bit of luck. Ajax might just survive this, but he's not dodged. No! He's gonna shred so much health. 900 HP remaining on the commander. You need a mobile flak to the front, but there is not a mobile flak to be found. Corsair's going to finish off that ACU, even as Petrick is having to fall back due to the onslaught of T2 tanks. That was a hard shift right there, and I think the entire game could have been decided differently if Ajax had built a flak out of his factory after 3 to 4 tanks, because that single flak would have made the difference in who won that air fight, and then Ajax could have protected his ACU from the Corsairs and moved on to win the game with his superior Tech 2 units. No T2 in sight for his opponent. That was exceptionally well played on both parts. Ajax was kind of fighting on his back foot for the entire game due to the superior map control and unit count of Whiteheart, but once he made that T2 shift, he was set to make up some ground with those clumps of tanks moving out into the world. Well done to the both of you. I would like to note at this point that these are best out of 3 matchups, and I have been picking a game from the tournament that represents the outcome of the bracket. So yes, Whiteheart won this bracket, but I would like to point out that Ajax went 2 wins, Whiteheart went 3 wins. They had to play 5 games, the full 5, to decide that best out of 3. Ajax fought valiantly, but Whiteheart in the end came out ahead. That is gonna wrap everything up for this video, guys. If you enjoyed it, feel free to drop a like and share it with someone. If you want to support the channel, catch the streams, or join the Discord, check out the links in the description. Thank you all for being at least partially insane, and I will see you in the next one.